I'm Marlene. Standing here outside the courthouse, watching Daniel retreat after I refused to engage in further conversation, I'm filled with a sense of finality and clarity. It's been a long journey, but now, I know I've made the right choice. It all started when I received an invitation from my daughter, Vivian. I was standing alone in my kitchen one evening, the sound of the kettle whistling in the background. My eyes were fixed on an envelope with Vivian's handwriting on it. The paper was of high quality, the kind used to impress, not to reconnect with a long estranged mother. For 18 years, neither Vivian nor my son, Leo, had spoken to me. No calls, no texts, no birthday wishes. The silence had become a part of my life, and I'd planned my days around not hearing from them. I often convinced myself that it took effort for them to forget me, that they'd made a conscious choice. As I slid my finger under the flap of the envelope, I hesitated. My reflection in the microwave door showed an older woman with tired eyes, yet still foolish enough to hope for something tender. I knew that whatever was inside, it wasn't an apology or love. But my hands moved, and I opened it. There was an invitation to a party at a country club. Vivian's words, "Mom, it would mean a lot if you came," felt almost surreal. For so long, my mailbox had only held bills, store flyers, and the occasional charity request I couldn't afford. This invitation was like a door I thought had been sealed shut years ago. I remembered the last time Vivian wrote to me. She was in college then, sending a quick note before finals with a simple "love you," Mom scrawled at the bottom. That was before she met her husband, Ryan, and entered a world of luxury and privilege where I seemed out of place. I should have noticed the growing distance, but love made me blind. I excused her silences, rationalized her missed calls, and told myself everyone was busy. I walked to my closet and found a dress I hadn't worn in years. It was a deep purple dress with lace trim that made me feel elegant when I first put it on. Touching the fabric, it felt like a promise I'd never fulfilled. The thought of wearing it again sent a small spark of warmth through me. I held the dress against my body in the mirror. I was older now, the fit was tighter, and the lines around my neck were deeper. But I also saw a woman who deserved at least one night where her name could be spoken without tension. I decided to go to the party. The night of the event was colder than expected. The taxi was warm, and I sat in the back, smoothing the dress across my knees, trying not to think about how long it had been since I'd dressed up. When we arrived at the country club, the place was bathed in golden light. It was a world where people came to be seen, not remembered. A valet opened my door, and I stepped into the lobby, where warm air and soft music surrounded me. A hostess led me to the banquet hall. Through the doors, I saw a sea of people, glasses in hand, laughter filling the air. The room was decorated with silver centerpieces and tall candles, each table more elegant than anything I could afford. I heard Vivian's voice. She was wearing a stunning red dress, her hair perfectly styled, and her smile bright. When she saw me, her eyes widened slightly, more in surprise than joy. She crossed the room and kissed my cheek, saying, "Mom, I'm glad you came," but her voice was distant. Before I could respond, someone called her name, and she excused herself, leaving me to stand alone. A server offered me a glass of champagne, which I took mainly to have something to hold. My seat was at a small table near the wall, beside two strangers who smiled politely. From my seat, I could see the main table clearly. Vivian and Ryan sat at the center, with their children lined up beside them. The kids were laughing and whispering, completely unaware of my presence. It was as if they'd never been told about their grandmother. During dinner, I kept stealing glances at Leo. He looked older, more polished, but also colder. When he finally noticed me watching, he gave a small nod that felt more like an acknowledgement of an inconvenience. Midway through the meal, Ryan stood up and tapped the microphone. He started by praising Vivian's achievements, their children, and their home. Then he shifted the topic. "Tonight," he said, "isn't just about celebrating Vivian. It's about celebrating our family and the legacy we're building." He began talking about a beach house in California they'd been planning for years. As he spoke, Leo stepped up beside him, holding a folder. I recognized that folder. I'd seen similar ones when Leo was in business school and wanted to show me every deal he was working on. "We've already secured the property," Leo said into the microphone. "All we need is one final contribution from our family matriarch." The words sliced through the room, and everyone turned to look at me. Ryan smiled and said, "Mom, would you join us up here?" My heart was pounding, and my legs were shaky as I stood up and walked towards the stage. I knew refusing in the middle of the room would be embarrassing, but I also knew what was coming. Leo placed the folder on a table near the microphone. The papers were neatly arranged, with a pen on top. I could see the numbers, and they matched the amount in my savings. He explained the deal calmly. My investment would secure the down payment, and my name would be on some paperwork, but without real authority. In return, I'd have a room in the beach house during family vacations. I scanned the crowd. Vivian was smiling, but it was forced. Ryan was watching me expectantly, and Leo simply nodded towards the pen. Something inside me hardened. I looked into Leo's eyes and said, "No." A few people gasped, and others whispered. Ryan's smile faltered slightly. "Mom," he said gently, "maybe you didn't understand." But I understood perfectly. I turned away from the stage and walked back into the crowd. The whispers followed me, but I kept walking. In the hallway, Leo caught up with me. His jaw was tight with irritation. "Mom," he said in a low voice, "what was that?" I faced him slowly and replied, "That was me saying no." He exhaled as if he was the one who'd been wronged. "You blindsided us. Ryan already spoke with a realtor. We were counting on you." I kept my voice steady. "You didn't ask me. You presented a signature in front of a room full of strangers. That's not family, that's pressure." He seemed genuinely confused. "This is for all of us, a family retreat, a long-term investment. You'll have a place there, too." I told him softly, "I have a place, just not in that house, and clearly not in yours." He looked away, blinking quickly, calculating. "You're overreacting, and you're making things harder than they need to be." I let out a small, tired laugh. "Harder for who?" He didn't answer. Instead, he said, "If you won't help us, then don't expect to be part of anything moving forward." But I didn't break. I simply felt a sense of clarity. "Leo," I said gently, "I haven't been part of anything for a very long time." Before he could reply, a group of guests entered the hallway. He mumbled, "We'll talk later," but we both knew we wouldn't. I stepped outside into the cold night. The air hit my face, and it felt like a cleansing. I pulled my coat tighter and walked towards the taxi stand. In the taxi, as we drove away, I finally let my shoulders drop. The silence in the car was different from the long, standing silence at home. It was an empty space that could hold something new. When I got home, I sat at my kitchen table, looking at the invitation. For the first time, I saw it for what it was, a transaction, not a bridge to reconciliation. I opened my laptop and started typing. I requested legal consultation, estate planning, and a name change. Each keystroke felt like a step towards freedom. I contacted an attorney named Grace Thompson. When I met her in her office, she greeted me with a firm handshake and a quiet understanding. I told her everything, and she listened without interruption. She said, "You're not the first parent to go through this, but you deserve a fresh start." With her help, I updated my will, removed Vivian and Leo entirely, and arranged for my modest estate to go to charities. She also walked me through the process of legally changing my name. It took weeks, but when I saw my new name, Diana Reed, in bold print, I felt a weight lift off me. I left the city and moved to a small coastal town called Ocean View. My apartment was small, with a view of the ocean. The sound of the waves was a constant reminder that there was still beauty and peace in the world. I joined a local art group and made friends who didn't ask about my past. I thought that would be the end of it, But then, Grace called to tell me that Leo had filed a civil claim. He argued that I'd abandoned the family financially and violated an alleged agreement to contribute to the beach house. But I wasn't angry, I just felt a dull ache of recognition. I appeared in court under my new name. Leo stood across the room, confident and polished, speaking as if the last 18 years had never happened. Vivian sat beside him, her eyes down, her hands clasped tightly. Grace presented the facts clearly. There was no contract, no agreement, and no evidence of an ongoing relationship. Most importantly, there was no legal or moral obligation for me to fund their real estate dreams. When the judge asked if I wanted to speak, I stood up slowly. I hoped for a long time that they would call me, I said. I waited through birthdays, holidays, and seasons. When they didn't, I accepted it. But I won't let silence be misconstrued as consent. The judge nodded, dismissed their claim, and issued an order preventing further harassment. His words, "Family is not an inheritance to be collected," lingered in the air. Outside the courthouse, Leo tried to approach me, but I shook my head. "You made your choice," I said. "Now I'm making mine." I walked away, towards a future that was mine alone. Back in Ocean View, as I sat on my balcony watching the sunset, I felt a sense of peace. The life I have now is small, but it's filled with dignity and freedom. Sometimes, I wonder if Vivian's children will ever learn my name. If they do, I hope they hear it with respect and without regret. I didn't disappear, I simply reclaimed my life.